All right. And this is a work in progress. I want you to notice I don't have any dates on here because there's not a lot of agreement on what date exactly a certain king ruled. But that's not important. When you're reading 1st and 2nd Kings and 1st and 2nd Chronicles, it's important that you know the king that they're talking about and who he followed and who he came before and who was reigning in the other kingdom at the time that he reigned. And I'll show you why later how you can get confused. All right, we're going to try to get, I'm hitting the wrong one, sorry. We're going to try to get through this quick because I'm very hungry. Okay, Old Testament overview. We've seen this before. I passed this out to you before. And again, the timeline is in the center, and we're concentrating on 1st and 2nd Samuel, 1st and 2nd Kings, and 1st and 2nd Chronicles. Really, 1st Samuel through 2nd Kings tells the whole story of the monarchy. From the time of the judges and the first king, Saul, to the captivity of Israel, the northern kingdom, I think in 587, and Judah, the southern kingdom, by the Babylonians in 721. So, 1st and 2nd Chronicles is pretty much a rehash of 1st and 2nd Kings. But it's from a different perspective, and it is different. We'll talk about the differences then. We talked about the introductory formulas. Now, these are very useful. It's a good thing these are in there. This is just an example. In the 20th year of Jeroboam, king of Israel, reigned Asa over Judah. And 41 years reigned he in Jerusalem. And his mother's name was Maacah, the daughter of Abishalom. And Asa did that which was right in the eyes of the Lord, as did David his father. Then a couple verses later, in verse 14, it says, "But the high places were not removed. Nevertheless, Asa's heart was perfect with the Lord all his days." So this is a model for the introductions to each king. It tells a little about, first of all, who was king in the other kingdom, what year of his reign this king came to power, so you know and how long he reigned. Right there. And because there's all this chronological information in the book of Kings, we're able to piece at least who followed who and who was king while this one was king. Every king has his concluding formula, and this is an example. Again, with Asa, the rest of all the acts of Asa and all his might and all that he did and the cities which he built, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Judah? And Asa slept with his fathers and was buried with his fathers in the city of David his father, and Jehoshaphat his son reigned in his stead. Again, he died, a new king is announced, okay? And it directs us to a place, the reader to a place where he can find out more information about Asa, because the author of Kings, the Deuteronomic historians, were interested only or primarily in those things that had to do with, did the king follow the covenant? Was he a good and obedient king, or did he stray from the covenant? And also about the worship. Was it proper and according to the way God said it should be, or was it illegitimate, idolatrous, or was it centralized? Did they worship at Jerusalem, or did they worship in the high places? So these are the things that keep popping up. Now, there is some confusion. I told you this chart is invaluable. I keep this by me when I read Kings and Chronicles because it really helps me know where I am. Sometimes you can get lost. Look at this passage, 2 Kings 8:16. "And in the 5th year of Joram, the son of Ahab, king of Israel, Jehoshaphat, being then king of Judah, Jehoram, the son of Jehoshaphat, king of Judah, began to reign." So you have Joram in Israel, and in the 5th year of his reign, Jehoram, the son of Jehoshaphat, king of Judah, begins to reign. So here we have Joram and Jehoram. But by the time you get to verse 20, it's talking about Jehoram. In his days, Edom revolted from under the hand of Judah and made a king over themselves. So Joram, I thought it was Jehoram. Joram went over to Zaire and all the chariots with him, and he rose by night and smote the Edomites which compassed him about. See, and then in a few scriptures later it says Joram died and was buried in the city of David with his fathers. He was a Judean king, but in the beginning they called him Jehoram. And so you have these two kings named Joram. If you look at your chart, oh, great, I left mine at home, but I think I can remember the important ones. There's one. You have Joram, who comes right, see where Elisha is? He's right to the right. Jehoram reigns next to Jehoram in Judah, but they were also both called Joram. Then you have a king, Jeroboam, that is the first king of Israel, but then you look down by Amos and Jonah, and there's another Jeroboam II, that reigned in Israel. You have an Ahaziah that was a king of Judah, and you have an Ahaziah up there by Elisha that was a king of Israel. So it's confusing sometimes to understand, to know who it is that they're actually talking about. And for years, I would read Kings, and I would get a little mixed up. And I said to myself, one of these days, I'm going to sit down, and I'm going to write all this out and figure it all out so I won't be confused. So I've done that for you. When you read in Kings, you can follow along. And you see the prophets, right? So you know that the story of Elijah is at the time of Ahab and Ahaziah. And the things that Elisha did were in the time of Jehoram down through Jehoash. So not only does that help you understand what kings they were dealing with, but it helps you find it in Kings. You know it's going to be about in the middle. So if you want to find the story of Elisha and the bears and the children, then you get a better idea where to look. Amen. It'll help you understand Kings and Chronicles a lot better. Now, we talked about the Deuteronomic history. This history, which is Judges through 2 Kings, is concerned with the kingship and the covenant, centralized worship, and prophecy and fulfillment. These things pop up all through 1st and 2nd Kings. The law summarized in the book of Deuteronomy was the standard against which all the kings are evaluated. And the purpose of the book, really, it shows the reasons for the decline and fall of the northern kingdom of Israel and the southern kingdom of Judah. How did they wind up being defeated and going into captivity? Actually, according to the book of Deuteronomy, cast out of the land. Kings, and also in 1st and 2nd Kings is most of the stories. It's one of the easiest books of the Bible to read. It's very entertaining and fast-paced, and it has a lot of the good stories that'll preach. A lot of the good lessons to be learned are in Kings. Kingship and covenant, let's talk about that first. The emphasis was on the interaction of the prophets and the kings. And we already mentioned that Elijah and Elisha, who were two of the greatest prophets in the Bible, do not have their own book. Everything we know about them is in Kings and Chronicles. Prophets are ambassadors from God's court to the court of the kings. They're coming under their own authority into the king's court. They're not servants of the king. It's very important to realize the difference, because this king is to be different than any other king of the nations around them, because he is supposed to be subject to the law and to the prophets. No other king on earth is subject to the law and the prophets, but the king of Israel is. The king of Judah also. Prophets and kings. Now, Elijah had to deal with Ahab and Ahaziah. They were kings of Israel. Elisha dealt with Jehoram, Jehu, Jehoahaz, and Jehoash, kings of Israel. Isaiah dealt with Jotham, Ahaz, Hezekiah, and Manasseh. They were kings of Judah. Jeremiah dealt with Jehoiakim, Jehoiachin, and Zedekiah. They were kings of Judah. So, right, you can see that Elisha and Elijah prophesied in the northern kingdom. Isaiah and Jeremiah prophesied in the southern kingdom. Oh, I got this one out of order. Other prophets. Other prophets are mentioned that also don't have their own book or anything, but they're mentioned. Ahijah the Shilonite, he was the one that told Jeroboam that he's going to be king of Israel, that God's going to tear 10 tribes away from Solomon for his idolatry, and he is going to be king. After he became king, his son got sick, and he told his wife, Go, there is a man that told me, go to the city and see Ahijah the Shilonite. He is the one that told me I would be king over Israel. So he knew that he was a prophet. He said, go and find out from him what's going to happen to our boy. Jehu, the son of Hanani, was the one that prophesied doom on the house of Baasha. And there were various unnamed prophets in there. A prophet disguised himself and put ashes on his face and rebuked Ahab for delivering Ben-Hadad, king of Syria. After he defeated him, he spared his life. There was another unnamed prophet that came when Jeroboam started the cult of the calves in Bethel. A prophet came from Judah to prophesy against the altar and to prophesy that a king, Josiah by name, would be born that would burn men's bones on his altar. These are unnamed prophets, but there are a lot of prophets in the book of Kings, more than in any other book. Prophecies made, 1 Kings 14:10, behold, I will bring evil upon the house of Jeroboam, and will cut off from Jeroboam him that pisseth against the wall. I suppose that's every male. And him that is shut up and left in Israel. That's those that are sick and in prison. And will take away the remnant of the house of Jeroboam as a man taketh away dung, till it all be gone. This was the prophecy of Ahijah the Shilonite against Jeroboam, the first king of Israel, that started the cult of the calves. That prophecy, it is noted that that prophecy was fulfilled later in 1 Kings chapter 15. It came to pass when Baasha reigned that he smote all the house of Jeroboam. He left not to Jeroboam any that breathed until he had destroyed him, according to the saying of the Lord, which he spake by his servant Ahijah the Shilonite. So it records prophecies, and it records the fulfillment of the prophecy. It's very important that the office of the prophet is very important to these historians. Another prophecy that's fulfilled in the book of Kings, and it's interesting because the compiler, makes note of it. He wants you to make note of the fact that in a certain king's reign, I think it was Ahab, that the city of Jericho was rebuilt. And the man that rebuilt Jericho, it says that he laid its foundation in his firstborn. His firstborn died when he laid the foundation, and it said he set up the gates thereof, which is the last thing you do after you build the wall, in his youngest. And it says this is to fulfill the prophecy that Joshua made in the book of Joshua after they had destroyed Jericho. He said, cursed be the man that rebuilds Jericho. He'll lay the foundation in his firstborn, and he'll set up the gates in his youngest. And the compiler of Kings notes that that was fulfilled in the time of Ahab. There are 4 doomed dynasties in Israel. These are in the boxes that I have on your chart under Kings of Israel. These men were especially wicked, and they drew God's special condemnation. He told these kings, they were the first of their dynasty. They had come to the throne and wiped out the dynasty ahead of them, which was according to the word of God, according to what had been prophesied. So they were the house of Jeroboam, the house of Baasha, the house of Ahab, Jehu. Just like they did to Jeroboam, they prophesied that your whole family is going to be cut off. And later on we read when the king came after that overthrew them and slew them and all their families and friends and kinsfolk, that it was fulfilled in the same way for each of these 4 doomed dynasties. Now, they had 9 dynasties in about 150 years, or 210 years in the kingdom of Israel, because they went into captivity sooner. They had 9 dynasties, and they became kings like men become kings in the world. Coups, overthrows, military uprisings, assassinations. But in the kingdom of Judah, there was always only the line of David. Okay, with the exception of Athaliah, but Athaliah reigned for only 7 years while David's line was growing up. He was an infant saved by his nurse from Athaliah's destruction of all her grandkids. That was the devil's attempt to wipe out the line of David. But The youngest son was spirited away and raised to the age of 7 in the temple. His aunt was Jehoiada, the high priest's wife. Centralized worship. This is another thing that pops up all the time. There were 2 kingdoms and 2 religions. Most people that go to church and read the Bible do not fully understand this. They don't know a lot of these things that you're learning. Okay? In the northern kingdom of Israel, the minute they divided, Jeroboam said, you know what, if they go down to Jerusalem to worship, it's just a matter of time before they go back, and I'm killed. And he said, I need to set up a competing religion. So he put calves in Bethel and in Dan, which is the northernmost city. Bethel is one of the southernmost cities of the northern kingdom of Israel. It's north of Jerusalem. But he set up these calves, and he told the people, it's too much for you to go to Jerusalem. These are where you worship. So he didn't have Levites for priests. He had the lowest of the people of the land. He observed feasts and holidays of his own mind. He made them up. And so they have a parallel, illegitimate religion. And there was the stubborn persistence of the high places. God said in Deuteronomy, in the place where I choose to set my name there, to put my name there, there is where you're going to bring and offer sacrifice. There is where you're going to meet for my feasts and my festivals. But the people continued to offer in the high places. Why? Because the high place was right out of town. You know, if I can go, like I said last week, if I can go to the DMV in Glendora, why should I go to the DMV in downtown LA? Right? So it made a lot of sense. There was a lot of pressure for these high places to exist because it was easier on the people. So you had illegitimate Yahweh worship in the high places, but you also had the importing of other gods from other countries. And this was primarily Baal. It's actually pronounced Baal, but if I said Baal, no one would know what I was talking about. But it's actually Baal. And Asherah, or sometimes called Ashtoreth. Now, Asherah was supposed to be the consort of Baal. Okay, that's like the queen. You have the king and you have the queen. The queen is the consort, the ruler's wife. So it's supposed to be Baal's wife. Now, when they worshiped Baal, they would build a temple or they would build an altar. Remember, Gideon threw down the altar to Baal that his village, his father and his village had erected. But for Asherah or Ashtoreth, they would erect what's called a grove. So when it talks about the groves, it's talking about Asherah or Ashtoreth. And when it's talking about, you hear hangings of the groves a lot of times, and the women that wove hangings for the groves. Okay, I have read that those were garments, women's clothing, with which they decorated the image of Asherah or Ashtoreth. Okay, so much for them. Israel and the cult of the calves. This is how it ended up. 2 Kings 17. This is God. For he rent Israel from the house of David, and they made Jeroboam the son of Nebat king. And Jeroboam drave Israel from following the Lord and made them sin a great sin. For the children of Israel walked in all the sins of Jeroboam, which he did. They departed not from them until the Lord removed Israel out of his sight, as he had said by all his servants the prophets. So was Israel carried away out of their own land to Assyria unto this day. That's the important thing right there, is that once Jeroboam started that, as soon as the kingdom of Israel was established, they never departed from it. So there were no good kings in Israel. There were no true worshipers of the Lord in Israel. They were all bad. They all followed the sins of Jeroboam. Here's an example. In the 23rd year of Joash, the son of Ahaziah, king of Judah, Jehoahaz, the son of Jehu, began to reign over Israel and Samaria. And just for the sake of practice, look and see if you can find Joash, the son of Ahaziah. Athaliah is right in between them. It's on the right, kings of Judah, next to the first Joel. You see Ahaziah, Athaliah, and Joash. Okay? So in the 23rd year of Joash, the son of Ahaziah, king of Judah, Jehoahaz, the son of Jehu, began to reign over Israel in Samaria. Okay, so you look over next to that, and there's Jehu. See? So it helps you keep these kings together. Who was king when so-and-so was king? And what did he do? He did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord and followed the sins of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, which made Israel to sin. He departed not therefrom. And that's true of all the kings of Israel. It says that of all of them, because the nation of Israel never did stop from observing the cult of the calves. Foreign gods came into the land primarily. They were already there, but it became like a in the time of the judges. Remember, Gideon cast down the altar of Baal. This was before there was even a king. But it became the official religion, or one of the official religions, because they never departed from the sin of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat. But it came to pass is that if it had been a light thing for him, that's Ahab, to walk in the sins of Jeroboam, the sons of Nebat, that he took to wife Jezebel, the daughter of Ethbaal, king of the Zidonians, that's the city of Sidon, as in Tyre and Sidon. And he went and served Baal and worshipped him. Okay, so now his wife brings in Baal as an official religion. This is the government-sanctioned religion now. And it was a bad time. The Bible talks about how not just in the northern kingdom of Israel, but Baal and Ashtoreth worked their way into the southern kingdom. And it talks about them pouring out drink offerings to the Queen of Heaven. And it talks about them offering to strange gods at the top of every street. And it talks about them offering their kids an infant sacrifice to the gods of the people around them, like Molech. And so, but right around here, this is when idolatry came in big time. And it eventually infected the southern kingdom of Judah as well. The acid test of a Judean king's rule, remember I told you all the northern kings were bad. They all followed the sin. They all followed the competing religion, the illegitimate religion. But in Judah, it was primarily the high places. They always had the Levites to priests. They always had the temple at Jerusalem. But the people would still sacrifice in the high places, which was contrary to the law. And so a lot of times when it talks about a king, it says, well, he did this and he did that, howbeit the high places were not taken away. As yet the people did sacrifice and burn incense on the high places. And you read this about king after king after king in the Kings of Judah column. But there are 4 kings, we'll get to that in a second. 2 kings that are given unqualified approval, and they are Hezekiah. Says he did that which was right in the sight of the Lord according to all that David his father did. And Josiah, he did that which was right in the sight of the Lord and walked in all the way of David his father and turned not aside to the right hand or to the left. These men were successful in taking away the high places. Even if it was for a time, they did it while they were king. They said, well, I'm king, we're going to do it the way it's supposed to be done. Now, notable kings of Israel. Remember I told you that the people that put this together, or the man that put this together, that compiled it, was not interested in a history, which would include wars and political movements and uprisings and, all the things that a history. He's only concerned with these kings. Were they good kings? Did they follow the covenant or did they not? So the ones that are especially evil or especially good are the ones that get most of the attention. So notable kings, notable for being well wicked, not just wicked, but well wicked, were Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, the first king, Baasha, Ahab, and Jehu. And if you look under the column of kings in Israel, you see they're the first king in every house upon which doom was pronounced. They were so bad that God let them know. He said, I raised you up, and you did my work to destroy this other house. But instead of walking after me, you did worse than they did. So these were especially bad kings. evil kings of Judah. Okay, they had evil kings and good kings. But they included Ahaz, Manasseh, and Zedekiah. Zedekiah was the king that Jeremiah had to deal with. Those are three that are noteworthy for being especially bad in Judah. Now, Ahaz, when it's talking about Ahaz, I chuckle every time I read this scripture. It says, "But when the Lord chastened him and brought all these things against him, instead of turning to the Lord, he yet did more evil." And then it says, "This is that King Ahaz." And I chuckle when I read that because I say today we'd say, this is what kind of a guy he was. Like he was really remarkable. Some of the good kings of Judah, if you look on your list to the right of the kings of Judah, were Asa, Jehoshaphat, his son, Hezekiah, and Josiah. They were the reforming kings. By the time Hezekiah and Josiah came along, Judah had fallen deeply into sin, and they were reforming kings, trying to bring them back. Now, one last thing we can observe about the book of Kings is that this is where all the prophets prophesied. Almost all the prophets, most of them, with the exception of Moses, let's say, and Abraham, or David was a prophet, or the prophets of the captivity. Most of these prophets prophesied in the second half of these reign of these kings, because this is when things were really going to pot. And God is merciful. And God, if you mess up and you get off the right path, God will send people to talk to you, like the prophets were sent to the kings. He'll let you dream a dream. He'll let you all of a sudden see something or read something or hear something that'll make you think. But he'll give you opportunity after opportunity after opportunity to do what's right. But finally, judgment. The axe will fall. And so it's important to us, one of the main lessons we need to get from Kings is that God is a merciful God, but he's not going to put up with us forever. Next, we'll talk about 1st and 2nd Chronicles, and maybe we can do that in one, because the list of the kings and all that is the same. But like I said, learn how to use this list. You can see how the prophets that have books are in the margins in the squares, and Elisha and Elijah are there. They don't have books, but they're there because they're so important. And this shows you how the prophets and the kings corresponded. Who was king in Israel when this king was king in Judah. And when you're reading the books of Kings, like I said, these names have variants, and they vary even in the same chapter. And reading this chart, following it along as you read, is going to help you locate yourself and not get confused. Are there any questions? No? All right, let's all stand. Oh, wow. We finished early. Did you?